everyone, and welcome to Innovator Insights from Idea to Impact, where we interview successful entrepreneurs about their journey and how they got from their initial idea to the final company they created or the product they created, and what kind of impact it had on the world. And today, we're super excited to have Alyssa Huffman with us. Welcome, Alyssa.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you, Henrik.
Alyssa has done a lot of things in her career. Most recently, she is the CEO of Illuminate, and will tell you how to spell that later, and also the CEO of Ortho Solutions. And we'll go through her background prior to that too. But again, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you and learn more about your journey.
It's a pleasure to be here, specifically because it's MedTech in general related. And so we've gotten focus in the orthopedics and spine space, but it's nice to be part of a network that's overarching what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we go into the business, tell us a little about yourself. Where do you live? I know you have pets. Do you have family? What do you do when you're not working, if there's any time left?
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I'm a mother first and foremost of a 12-year-old son, and we're based out of St. Louis, Missouri, as well as Springfield, Missouri, and then we're down in Tampa, Florida, for manufacturing, as well as traveling for meetings at all times. So when I'm not on the road, I'm home. I try to be part of a adventure club group called Medallion Adventure Club that I helped initiate the concept to reality with one of my professors, Professor Ron King at WashU. And it's evolved into 14ers and Machu Picchu. And it's a phenomenal opportunity for people that don't always have somebody to travel with, but they want to do these adventures.
So, how do you join? Or is it select?
Yeah, it's a Medallion Adventure Club. It's online. There's a website. I'm happy to share it. And it's also I think I have it on my LinkedIn profile. So if not, I'll put it on there.
Sure, we put it in the notes. Great.
MedallionAdventureClub.org. Sorry.
All right. Awesome. How many trips have you been on?
Oh gosh. Well, they do local hikes in St. Louis and surrounding areas, but then we've done Colorado. So probably 3 hikes, I believe, and several smaller ones. And then we have the adventure weekends where we're just staying at a house on the lake and we're swimming and we're hiking and kayaking and all sorts of good stuff. So, and yoga. Yeah.
What a great club. All right, let's switch to business and entrepreneurship. Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial family where have you always been on the entrepreneurial path, or was that something you found a little later in life?
You know, my father became an orthopedic flight surgeon in the Air Force. So I think that limitless mindset is really what was driven home in me. So my dad was let go from his position at Montgomery Ward's as a tire salesman during the Vietnam War, and he assumed that he was going to get drafted. So he joined the Air Force. He started as a gate guard and then worked his way as a scrub tech to a PA. And then Dr. Alfred Tria from Mass Gen happened to be at the Air Force at the same time. And he pushed my father to become a physician, then an orthopedic surgeon. And Dr. Alfred Tria is the godfather of my brother. And he's the one that invented minimally invasive surgery along with the team. And so it's just fate kind of worked its way through the networks and in our family core values, I think, and just limitless thinking.
So he came home from the war or his military assignment and became a surgeon?
He never got drafted, or he never went into that war because he went into medical school and PA school. So I think that he took care of the soldiers but he never had to actually go to physical war.
And then but you didn't start as an entrepreneur, right? You started more a career in sales. Is that right?
So I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon or plastic surgeon.
Huh.
And I had a failure. I didn't have the grit to get through a relationship failure when I was 19, and just did not thrive very well. So I looked for other opportunities outside of a medical school and ended up getting a journalism degree because they didn't have a med device degree at the time, and decided to either be a journalist for the Travel Channel with my degree or go into sales in orthopedics. I had always been in orthopedics in some capacity, whether it was an athletic trainer or working in a clinic and purging x-rays and working really from the ground up.
Amazing. But then, so when did the entrepreneurial spirit catch you, and when did you start your first company?
After I started OrthoMed Solutions in 2007,
Yeah.
after becoming a sales rep and distributor for Smith and Nephew, I was a 1099 for Smith and Nephew Total Joints. I then picked up trauma, and because I was 1099, I could add additional lines that didn't compete. Because I was a woman in a field of all men, I had to work around not being able to travel, not being able to go on the trips and the golf excursions and so on and so forth. The wives wouldn't be very happy if I was accompanying their husbands, and because they were all men at the time. And so I decided to see what I could do to achieve the goals of being the best, and being reliable was one of them, knowing emerging technologies. So I learned biologics and computer navigations and robotics very well. And then I became comprehensive. So I could look at the schedule and I knew something about every single surgery that they were doing. So I could be the backup plan. I went in as the backup plan for surgeries, and ended up evolving into the number one, the go-to on a variety of companies that I represented. And
So,
that developed into Illuminate. I sketched out the concept of Illuminate's first product in 2009 after seeing the catastrophic effects that were occurring to my uncle and cousin with hardware loosening in their spine.
oh, wow. So before we go to Illuminate, help me understand that the OrthoMed Solutions, you're working as a distributor then for different MedTech companies. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then your expertise was to bring in their products into hospitals, different surgeons, and help educate them on those products and sell them.
Absolutely.
Is that
Yes. That's
accurate? Yeah, right.
yeah.
And then over the years, it sounds like you had the idea pretty early, back in 2009, and then it took almost a decade to bring it to market, or bring it, start your company. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yes. I was a late bloomer. And and part of being a late bloomer is it gives you the credibility in some sense, and it gives you the opportunity to, because I had 15 years to understand what I wanted to do, right? I looked at it from every angle humanly possible, and I talked to a lot of people through the years about the viability of it. So I knew pretty concretely when I invested in myself and going into the Wash U program that I was going in to take my rose-colored glasses off, to take any blinders off, but also to literally develop the company while I was in the program.
Okay, so can you tell me a little more about that, the Wash U program? What was that exactly?
So in 2000, 2018, I was in the middle of a divorce, got hit by a drunk driver going 77 miles an hour,
Wow.
endured a traumatic brain injury, and then PTSD, complex PTSD, and all that good stuff. Then I told my employer that I needed brain surgery. They let me go 2 weeks later because even though I was number one or number two in the world, they let me go. And I was all of a
Gosh.
sudden without a job and a single mom without child support. And I just decided right then and there I was tired of being disposable. I had built companies up in regions from less than 5% market share to 80, 90% market share, depending on the company. And I was always disposable. I was tired of being disposable. And I promised myself that I was never going to do that again because I had met people that understood, that saw vision. And they had pushed me through the years to invest in myself, but I really didn't have um, I didn't have the faith in myself, or I was waiting for someone to create that, see that vision in me and put me into the role. And I was waiting for that seat at the table.
Yeah.
And I just decided I was tired of waiting. I was making better decisions than a lot of people that I had seen. And I wasn't, there weren't a lot of people that had the commercialization expertise that I did, to where I could see from a variety of surgeon standpoints what worked and what didn't, and the operational throughput of the hospital and logistics and operations and company creation.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I'm blown away. If you don't mind, can you go back to so you're very successful. You built a tremendous career in representing all these different companies, and then you have going through a personal tragedy, and then on top of that, get in a terrible accident and get fired as a result. I mean, that must have been a very difficult time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
Right.
then, yeah, having going into brain surgery, as a single mom, you're thinking,
Well,
where's the bottom going
what
to fall
if?
out? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I decided when I went right after that car wreck, after I was let go, I decided that I was going to invest in myself.
Yeah. You must
And
have been mad as hell too, right? I mean,
oh,
what?
yeah, I had four fracture and well, depending on the CT and the MRI, it was between 2 and 4 fractured ribs by my spine. I needed surgery on my right wrist, both knees. And
Gosh.
it was just brutal. And then I had the surgery for trigeminal neuralgia, which is called suicide's disease. I was getting 40 electric shocks in my face every minute, on a
Jeez.
10 to 10 pain scale. And uh, you become incapacitated and you realize how fragile life is, how genuinely fragile life is. And uh, and then you start looking with a different lens at life. You say, okay, uh, now that I know what the foundation crack and demolishing of the foundation basically looks like, I'm going to build my life up brick by brick, and I'm going to invest in myself. And dollars don't mean much to you anymore when you get to hit that level.
Yeah.
And I base uh, my decisions in life on what will I regret if I were on my deathbed. And it changed everything.
That's incredible. Are you largely recovered, fully recovered?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, going on the 14ers, I can't do anymore. I did it, I checked the box off, but I realized it was a year to recover after it and it's
Yeah.
not worth it. But I just managed my own expectations and managed the trips, the people that are accompanying me. They realize, and we have age ranges from 20s to 80s on these trips. So that's the fun part about this is I can hang back with the 80-year-olds and have a great time. So, and it's
What's important in life. Well, that's what an amazing story. You should write a book if you haven't already. Okay. So now we're up. Let's talk about Illuminate. So the concept came from you saying from a family going through experiencing malfunctioning equipment. Can you tell me a little more about that and what happened and what was the solution you saw to the problem?
Yeah, so I represented thousands of products from the neck down for orthopedic, spine, biologics, computer navigation, sports medicine, trauma. And there was a common theme: failure in the orthopedic and spine hardware uh, typically might have been resolved had there been a therapeutic aspect to it. So, for example, my cousin, who is an incomplete quadriplegic, her screws loosened from her spine and her spine fusion. And when that happens, it causes issues mechanically, but it also can contribute to biological problems. And so my goal with her was, how would we stabilize, how would we create stronger bone for her to hold that hardware in? Because bone in the spine is very different than elsewhere in the body. It's much more thin, open pores and thinner lattices. And
Got
then
it.
my uncle, he's now on his seventh spine fusion, catastrophic injuries. I mean, just he's had through those procedures, he's died or almost died 3 times, had lost 9 units of blood, had infections for almost every single procedure, and one time was in a rehabilitative hospital for 3 months after post-surgery for infection, and then the screws loosened. He had a diabetic ulcer from the hardware backing out and the rod impinging upon the skin tissue. Um, so for him, infection control would have been a fantastic option to deliver with the therapeutics, as well as bone mineral density increasing to stabilize the overall construct and allow the fusion to occur. And so what I did was I used the gold standards in orthopedics, and this applies to dental too. So keep in mind, bone likes bony patterns. So if we can 3D print bony patterns into the same hardware, then we can allow bone to grow into the hardware and stabilize the implants. So it's almost like Velcro kind of.
It's
But in
not slick surfaces, but somehow more natural, bone-like, and
yeah,
then the existing bone kind of melts with that or merges with that somehow.
the product's called Integrate
Yeah.
because we want to integrate the bone into the hardware, but we also want to integrate the opportunity for using the body's stem cells. The bone marrow has a lot of stem cells, particularly in the spine. A lot of people think that the most stem cells are in the hip, but it's actually in the vertebral bone and the cranium. This is new data. And so if we can draw the bone marrow into the hardware and surrounding the hardware, because the stem cells are like chameleons, what they touch, they turn into. Now we have the opportunity, not just with the hardware, but also from the bone marrow cells to create stronger, better, harder, faster bone organically. Now, keep in mind, you have to have a viable immunological response. Like you have to have this doesn't work in everybody. Healthy
Yeah.
patients have healthy stem cells. And so these stem cell clinics that are popping up, they're saying to the 90-year-old cancer patient that has been a smoker for 60 years, oh, we can regenerate your cartilage, like it's false advertising and really the FDA is doing a great job about getting those people off the market. But
Part of the eliminate solution then is the hardware, but then also how do you get the stem cells in there?
you can draw them in. So we're the first company in the world that actually draws the bone marrow into the hardware. So, and creates that biological ripple effect. It's a new category of orthopedic spine and dental hardware and veterinary hardware, where we're creating, we trademarked the name therapeutic hardware. So therapeutic hardware is a completely new category that's never been introduced into the market.
So do you inject the fluid into the hardware, or is the hardware actually part of, or the stem cells actually part of the hardware somehow?
So that's a great question. So for example, with a screw, as you
Hmm.
screw in the screw, it collects the bone into the hardware. Then you take a luer lock and screw it onto the tip, draw the bone marrow into the hardware, and what's cool about this is by drawing that bone marrow into the hardware, you can also use that bone marrow for diagnostics. So if there's a concern about high lymphocytes or there's cancer or any type of diagnostic need, they can send that to the lab. So you have the opportunity from a diagnostic standpoint, but you can also use it from a therapeutic standpoint and draw the bone marrow in, re-inject it, and now you have two passes to act as a strainer and collect those cells.
And with the bone marrow then inside the hardware, does that help it then to merge or integrate with
As
with
long as
bone
the
surrounding it?
Yeah, as long as the stem cells are touching what they're going
Oh,
to turn into. So you want
got it.
them to touch the bone
Hmm.
that's collected in the pores, or you want them to be held onto, captured within the bony patterns. So because the bone grows into those capture sites, those porous sites.
And that's part of your invention with the hardware that it allows that to happen.
Correct.
Am I
That's
understand that correctly? Yeah.
Yes, that's the whole premise of
It's
it.
brilliant.
Thanks. Thanks. You know, it should make sense. It should be the obvious next step.
Yeah. And how long? So that was a 10-year journey. Did you know what the solution was in the beginning, or did it just start with a problem and then you were hell bent on finding a solution?
Both.
Okay.
So 3D printing didn't really exist. This is a companies have been trying to do this for a long time. There are patents that have existed for 3D printed screws for 15 years. But nobody could pass the FDA's requirements for screws. We chose spine because that's where we felt we could do the greatest global good. These are catastrophic for a lot of patients. Um, uh, when the hardware backs out and the fusion doesn't take place, if you have infection presenting itself, you have to take the hardware out, and then do another wait and then do another surgeon spine fusion. And every time you go in, you're disrupting nerves and muscles and all of that good stuff. And if you have too much infuse, like my uncle did, um, it creates much more scarring and uh, catastrophic problems. So I started the journey by sketching out a variant of this, but it has evolved because now we have the right engineering team led by Matthew Schomper, who is an entomology and very vocal voice within the additive manufacturing community. He's our CTO, as well as we have the manufacturers that are willing to modify and manipulate the machines to get the strength that we need to achieve. And so we're the first ones in the world to pass the FDA's 1717 testing. We're really proud of that achievement.
It's amazing. Congratulations.
Thanks.
And you said you're manufacturing in the US. Is that correct?
So we have manufacturing in the US. We have manufacturing partners over in India as well. They were our initial
Okay.
investors at a time when the US basically stopped investing in MedTech, or particularly in orthopedic spine. I believe it was PitchBook said there was a 95% reduction in VC funding in Q1 of 2024 versus Q1 of 2022. And then 50% of that was going into AI, right? So the likelihood of orthopedic spine startup with just an idea getting any kind of revenue was very low. And we got partnered with a gentleman named Tarek Birch over in India, who is just my guru for Asia. He knows Asia inside and out. And so we have distribution opportunities, very concentrated, 1 to 2 per country in Australia, Japan, India, Dubai, and potentially the UK and Switzerland. But alpha launch will be in the US.
So what's the state now? You mentioned from a fundraising perspective, I think you're raising your Series A. But how close is the product to be used in in live patients?
We're anticipating clearance Q1 of 2025. So
Okay, so this quarter.
yeah, knock on wood. Yeah,
Yeah,
we have some pretty brilliant FDA reviewers who are highly tenured in spine additive manufacturing. And specifically, what was interesting is I liked the fact that they put a reviewer that had osteogenesis imperfecta experience, which is so they understand the biologic side and need. It was, I think the FDA did a very good job at who they chose.
that's great, great. And then what happens? You get the FDA thumbs up.
Then
What's the path from there to actually get it in use?
So we have our key opinion leaders for our alpha launch over at WashU, Duke, UCSF, Cox Health for a regional perspective, and Phoenix Children's, Mayo for a pediatric perspective. And so I didn't recognize early on while building the pro forma for the company, which I built during my executive MBA program, that there was so much viability in pediatrics. And Dr. David Bennett did a really nice job of relaying to me. He said, these children that they treat have severe scoliosis of the spine, and a lot of them are in wheelchair bound. And so when you don't have a lot of bowel function, it seeps into the wounds. So when you have a spine fusion and it's getting infected, they utilize antibiotics. The ability to deliver antibiotics through the hardware is really interesting to them and could be. Now, keep in mind, we are not cleared. We will not be cleared for antibiotic delivery through the devices, but we aim to partner with companies and we aim to get that clearance.
It's an exciting year
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
What does the sales process look like there? Who is the buyer of your solution?
That's the perfect question, actually, because the big ortho and spine companies have done an excellent job of keeping companies and innovation out with these GPO exclusivity agreements. In
The
every
GPO being,
group purchase organization,
yeah,
what
yeah,
they do is they partner with companies and they negotiate for the hospitals, and these GPOs get a percentage of whatever revenue streams through the manufacturers, but it keeps costs down for hospitals at the same time. So it's supposed to be a balanced way to bring in innovation. However, if your hospital has a 95% exclusivity agreement with a manufacturer like Medtronic or Johnson and Johnson, it forces the surgeons to use the same products over and over. In each one of those contracts, there is always an exclusion for revisions. And I think that that is really smart and it's valuable and it gives us a opportunity for, particularly in spine where there's such a high revision rate, that uh, it gives us a pathway, a direct pathway, and it also demonstrates our overarching goal of reducing the revision rates in spine. So if we have the worst of the worst patients, we're going in for the worst of the worst spine fusions, and we're still reducing that revision rate, we have an opportunity to become the standard of care.
it's exciting.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's the American healthcare system is interesting.
We've become a country where there's only a handful of players, and
Yeah,
I have a personal initiative to help people innovate to help actual patients. And the North American Spine Society, uh, uh, Dr. Gogolwala and Eric Muehlbauer, the CEO and president, the former president of the North American Spine Society, they recognize the need and the desire that physicians, specific spine surgeons and researchers were tired of the same commoditized products. And so they asked me to join their committee as the first commercial representative to help surgeons bring innovation to market. So that was pretty exciting when I'm just a little,
Awesome.
we don't even have a product on the market yet, but the North American Spine Society saw the value and they put their money where their mouth is, so to speak, meaning like they're not just writing a book. Eric wrote a book on this, on innovation. He's also saying, what can we do to help our surgeons bring new products to market?
See that in a lot of different fields where the big kahunas, the existing players are just using all their power and might to keep startups up, or at best maybe they buy them, and that becomes their innovation engine. So what's your end goal? What do you think? What happens here in 2025, and then in the next 5-10 years? Do you have a vision for where this ends?
100%, yeah. To reduce the global reoperation rates for spine patients, number one, to translate that to the orthopedic and dental market and veterinary market. Uh, we have to we're starting our Series A round. We're raising 15 million. That opens up next month, I think,
Yeah,
maybe
great.
February or March, as we gain clearance. And we aren't stopping. We're not going to expect acquisition. I think particularly right now, orthopedic companies and spine companies are struggling because of COVID. That they had 50% revenue drops. They laid off all their R&D team mostly, or their marketing team. So they're struggling to get back. And so we can't rely on acquisition for the next couple of years. However, I heard a new trend that Blackstone is starting to invest in orthopedic spine again. I don't know if that's factual, but that it gives credence to Warren Buffett's theory of get in while everybody's getting out, because everybody's investing in AI right now. And AI, what people don't understand about AI is that is a long roadmap in healthcare. And a lot of hospitals don't have the infrastructure to adopt it. So they're going to rely on acquisition from the large partners to get the throughput and to help the surgeons.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of VCs are, you know, follow the herd mentality, right? It's 1 year it's crypto, and then the next year it's something else, and now it's AI, and I'm sure that's going to last for a while. But you'd wish that everybody wouldn't be chasing the same type of opportunities at the same time.
Well, but it's interesting though, because it's Darwinism in some regards, where the strongest, not the biggest, but the strongest survive because they learn how to do more with less.
Yeah,
Now, because we don't have massive dilution, because we didn't raise $15 million in our seed round, now we have an opportunity to be very strong and our team maintain some control. And that's important, particularly in innovation, because it can get lost in the shuffle with board egos and all of that good stuff. So we get to handpick, we get to cherry pick some of the best and the brightest to join our board. And right now, I specifically chose to be the sole board member until we got to our Series A round, because we had opportunity with extraordinary leaders to join the board at the Series A. And those are the people that I wanted leading and making
yeah,
decisions, because they didn't have the ego that mid-levels do.
yeah, yeah.
Typically.
Makes
That's
sense.
terrible. That's terrible to say, but
No, but it's accurate. Um, are you looking for specific strategic investors in this, or more traditional venture capitalists or angels? Do you have a target?
so we're open to all scenarios. I just don't want to work with with people that don't believe in helping people.
Yep.
And so we can work with strategics. In fact, we're actually talking to a few strategics about taking their current IP, their current hardware, applying our IP to it, and then they don't have to change the instrumentation, because the instrumentation for these products, these orthopedic spine products, the instrumentation can be very expensive. And so just to cover one case, you can be spending $50,000 on instrument trays to implant the hardware. So if we can give them a new category of therapeutic hardware with their current designs, and the surgeons don't have to change their implantation, their surgical technique, and
Yeah.
it just gives a benefit to the patient. Um, it can be a win-win
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, that seemed like that would lower the barriers to entry significantly because they don't have to retool completely. Well, I'm sorry we are running out of time. I've been so impressed. What an amazing journey, and what a story of perseverance, going through so many obstacles and fighting the big kahunas in the industry. So I'm grateful that you've been on the podcast and you shared your story. Um, I'm sure if people wanted to learn more, where should they go to
Yeah.
learn about your story, about the company?
Please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm definitely very active on LinkedIn. We also have our website, www.illuminate, L-L-U-M as in Mary, I-N as in Nancy, and the number 8.com. A was to be at the top of the trade shows, Lumen to shed light on in a dark commoditized market, and the infinity symbol to always have that creation. And so there's, throughout all of this experience, I am so grateful and so I'm more happy than I've ever been in my life. My roots grew deeper, and I think that is something that I encourage everyone to. And I'm happy to have any conversation about this as well.
Yeah. Before we end, then any advice that you would give aspiring entrepreneurs early in their journey, or even experienced entrepreneurs from all the things you've gone through?
I think, I think testing the market viability, you have to do that. And creating a pro forma and really understanding how many units you're going to sell. So from that standpoint, you really have to understand your pathway to the market. A lot of people solve for a problem instead of solve for a pathway. And so if the market's not going to accept it, you can't get it through commercialization. There's no reimbursement code. There's a lot of failure mechanisms. And your job as a CEO is to reduce those failure mechanisms. So talking with people is the most important. And then from an entrepreneurial mindset, you have to have the grit and um, keeping your head down while knowing where your target is. And this is similar to hiking, right? You don't always look up at the mountain because you're always going to get distressed. And it's when you keep your head down, and then anytime where there's a challenge or a barrier, you need to look back and see how far you've come. And recognizing when sometimes you do need to pivot. Almost everybody pivots. There is nothing wrong with a pivot. In fact, some of the greatest things have been invented because of pivots. So keeping that mindset to just understand things, be malleable, be nimble and quick, because that's where you can deliver the most value for your company and for patients.
Yeah, I think that the first advice you gave there to it's great to have a vision, an exciting idea, a cool innovation, but unless it's anchored in reality and that you have a clear path to commercialize it, it's worth little, right? So you have to, as an entrepreneur CEO, be able to master both, to have hope and vision, but then also be facing the brutal facts and being anchored in the numbers.
And there's nothing wrong with going back to school and working with some of the biggest minds in the world, right? I mean, I invested 150,000 at a point where I didn't have a job and I was just consulting, to get through. And it was a big, big risk. But one of my professors ended up investing 200,000. And so, I mean, that doesn't always happen, right? But it's the tenacity and the drive and the awareness and this undercurrent of support that we're getting. We've never even advertised, and we're getting this underground of support from spine surgeons, neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, from clinicians, from healthcare in general, and it's really powerful to motivate the company when the team sees it as well.
That's wonderful. Alyssa, thank you so much for taking the time, sharing your story. I'm sure our listeners are going to enjoy it a lot. And best of luck in 2025. And after that, thanks again for being on the podcast.
Thank you. It was a joy.